Break out the carrot sticks and natural yogurt, no artificial hormones added. It's time for the Doctor's Nutrition Show. Dr. Lewis and Janet have a long history of helping people achieve their maximum potential. While Janet is a certified natural health consultant with a unique perspective of alternative and complementary nutrition, Dr. Lewis stays current on the latest research pertaining to nutritional supplements and optimum health. Paramount to their educational journey was their trip to China while studying Chinese medical doctors. Dr. Lewis and Janet know the importance of proper nutrition in the healing process and maintenance of the human body. Get ready to gain a healthy perspective on life. This is the Doctor's Nutrition Show.
Hello and welcome to our Pro Health IQ podcast, home of the low-cost lab work and pharmaceutical-grade nutrition. I am Janet Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Lewis.
And we're here to help you take the guesswork out of what's missing with your nutrition and health. Our website is www.prohealthiq.com. There you can find our free health survey, many products, Dr. Lewis's blogs, and all of our past shows. Speaking of which, our current show today is being overwhelmed by stress. If you or someone you know is overwhelmed with it, this is the show to listen to because we're going to help take it away just like Calgon. So with that being said, Dr. Lewis, can you tell us how to get rid of stress because it seems everybody has it?
I think I'll go to the store and buy some Calgon.
Maybe they don't even make that anymore. I don't know.
Calgon, take me away. Stress is a big buzzword, and, we hear it many, many times per day. And I think the more we talk about it, the more we create it. We're going to talk about a lot of things. But I'd like to just say it's more of a mental, spiritual, emotional thing that if you speak good things, you get good things, but you have to speak the positive more than you speak the negative, which negative means negate or do away with the positive. We just got an email this morning from a young lady that said she just got pregnant with her second son because of the help that we've given her and got her in better shape and better health and without the fertility aids that they had to use for the first son. So emails like that bring us up and give us a little bit more hope. And so I think the more we spread things like this to each other, the less stress is going to affect us. The people that we see, for example, on Facebook, and I'm talking about people that I know, it's 5:30, I'm done. I think I'm going to walk into the ocean. I'm ready to hang up the towel. I'll just as soon be dead. Those people never take time to do anything for anyone else. So if you could just do, that one small random act of kindness, you'd be surprised how good that would make you feel. Plus, it would uplift somebody. And even if they don't look like they need the blessing, you never know what's going on in their life. So just reach out when you get that little spirit that's being urged. The people that I see that are stressed, and there's different degrees of it, but they have a lack of flexibility. They're very rigid in their thinking. And we have to realize, I believe, that we need to accept people that are much, much different than us because we all have a different perspective. We all have different ideas on how things should be done. I like a big greasy ribeye steak, but we treat many dozens and dozens and dozens of vegans. And, they're vegans for different reasons. Some of them are philosophical and some of them for health issues. And it's like if they choose to eat that way, it's my duty to help them and to get out of stress. So be flexible. It's okay that somebody has a different opinion. People can have a different opinion and it doesn't have to upset you and you don't have to make them wrong. And I think that's one of the problems with our political climate. They're both wings to the same bird, if you'll think about it that way. So be flexible. Find something to laugh about. Look for somebody to bless. And we're going to get into the nutritional aspect of it, of course. But And Janet got a call this week from a man in New York. This is, I've been listening to your podcast for 6 months, and they just inspire me and make me laugh and make me more knowledgeable and give me more hope. And now after 6 months of listening, he's ready to actually take action. So thank you very much for listening, and God bless you for sharing this, that
Yes.
you're going to bless somebody else's life for doing that. Find something to laugh about. That's good. You have to look at what you're eating, and we've seen this behavior change in one of our grandchildren, and we've kind of cleaned up the diet as much as we can, and we could see a big change in behavior for the better within one day. MSG is a major neuroexcitatory toxin that makes your brain go bonkers. Artificial food dyes, and if your brain is on fire or has that inflammation, that's going to create stress, and you have to know where to put it out. Well, the first thing to do is avoid the things. Mercury lowers your glutathione levels. Now, glutathione is a major liver detoxifier / energy producer, and if you drink very much at all, you've just killed all of your glutathione stores. But mercury does that, and the most common place that everybody gets into mercury is high fructose corn syrup, which is hidden in all sorts of things. And now that people are getting on to high fructose corn syrup, they're relabeling that. So be careful about that. There are toxins in our environment that you've heard me talk about many, many times. They actually mimic estrogen activity, which has a huge effect on our moods. Men, if you think that's true in your household, now would be a good time to not say anything. You might, whoops, I'm going to be quiet because Janet's got the look.
I'm just sitting here listening to how not to be stressed. It's really good. Go ahead.
There's even people that have named it, idiopathic environmental intolerance syndrome, resulting from overtaxed immune system trying to cope with too many toxins. And that's been associated with increased panic attacks. The problem with treating somebody that has anxiety and panic attacks is usually they can't do it on their own, and they need a support system from close friends or family to help them through it, because they need a lot more hand-holding. That particular statement I just made about the idiopathic environmental intolerance syndrome comes from Journal of Allergy and Clinical Immunology. So this is real research, folks, and I'm not a big fan of people say, "Oh, I've researched it on Google." Yeah, you can get all kinds of stuff on Google. Some of it's definitely slanted in poor directions. Because here's another thing that I think is causing stress. And a lady told me yesterday, she said, "Well, Google just confuses me." Hey, folks, have you ever heard, fish oil is great, grand, and glorious. It'll do this, 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 and this. And now they're coming out poo-pooing fish oil. Yeah, there's always a naysayer out there. Then there's people that are poo-pooing the PSA test to check a man's prostate. And I admit it's not the greatest test in the world, but I think you're crazy not to test it. Now they've come out, and this has been very recently, saying, there's so many people that are overdosing on vitamin D, and it can cause all these major, major problems. Folks, I want you to be intelligent enough and discerning enough to know that that is a hatchet job put out by people with intentions that aren't pure and clean, because 99% of the people have vitamin D that's too low. And one of the things, if you would think about it, since it's metabolized from cholesterol, if you have low vitamin D, the body automatically starts increasing your cholesterol so that perhaps you can create more vitamin D. And perhaps high cholesterol is just a copper deficiency, or maybe it's because your liver is clogged up from your high fructose corn syrup that makes triglycerides, and you're not burning enough of the glucose. So then the triglycerides, you get clogged up liver with stone that goes down into the gallbladder and creates cholesterol stones or gallstones. Perhaps it's your thyroid not working as it should. No, if that thyroid's not happy, there's no way in the world you can not be stressed. Of course, some people handle it better than others. And my thing, and you've heard this repeated over and over again from me, it's all inflammation, and there's always part of the equation is part of the GI tract, and we're going to get into that too. So, whether the GI tract causes the stress or the stress causes gastrointestinal malfunction. It could be either way, and it doesn't matter. You just put out the fire, stop the cycle, break that cycle. One of the things, sometimes if you just get those food dyes out of your diet or out of your kids' or grandkids' diet, it helps. Or sugar, which feeds yeast and fungus, which puts out all kinds of nasty excitotoxins when they excrete in your intestines. So starve it out. And I'm a big fan of fat. And I know fat's been poo-pooed since even before I was born, but fat is not bad, not even saturated fat, because they'll say saturated fat is bad. Well, then they came out and said, well, no, actually saturated fat is not bad. Now they're going back and saying, no, saturated fat is bad. So be careful what you hear, because it can vary so very much. And I think it's good to get somebody that can kind of help you wander through the minefield, so to speak. Growth.
Well, it's kind of interesting. There actually was a doctor that did research on monkeys to see about their stress levels, and it turns out that the ones that were not as high ranking in their baboon society in the Kenyan wilderness were actually the ones that experienced more stress. He monitored their adrenal hormone levels, namely the adrenaline and the cortisol levels. And the fact that baboons live in communities with hierarchical structures led Dr. Sapolsky to one of the most profound discoveries, that baboon stress is related to hierarchy or social rank.
Or living with a baboon can stress you.
I think it's interesting, because the higher a baboon's rank, the less stress it experiences.
I read that, and I want to disagree with it. And Janet and I have a wonderful job. We're so blessed. Because people like my friend Debbie will say, I'm still listening to you. And it's like, thank you. But I think because we've kind of risen to a better level, sometimes we think we're more stressed because of it. But according to this study, that's not really true. And this study, I think, is actually true. So I want you to listen to Janet. But I read some research one time that said candy eaters live longer. And the guy that was teaching this class handed a Snickers out to everybody in the class. Well, the part that wasn't talked about is they were Harvard graduates that had a higher level of success.
Yeah,
but they linked it to eating candy. And I told Janet, so I can eat a Snickers every day. But you have to look at the entire study and how it's done. So, yes, I think this study Janet's talking about is true, even though sometimes we think we're stressed. And it's like, well, I guess that's better than, the years I was cleaning out feedlots up to my knees in cow manure, loading it on the trailers, and then going and throwing it on the pastures, and all the things I've done in my past. So go ahead with that. We'll talk about baboons, and maybe she won't give me the baboon stink eye.
I just think it's interesting that it's not just us, that they actually had this experiment done. It says the higher a baboon's rank, the less stress it experiences. The lower its rank, the higher its stress. And more importantly, this doctor discovered that the low-ranking have-nots of the baboon world experienced higher heart rates and blood pressure than the ones that have more. And arteries in the have-not monkeys filled up with plaque, restricting their blood flow and increasing their heart attack risk. And this was the first time stress was scientifically linked to deteriorating health in wild primates. And as it turns out, the same is true for other primates like us, because they had 18,000 men occupying various positions with the British Civil Service. The findings paralleled what this doctor found for the baboons, saying the higher your status, the lower your risk for stress-related diseases. Marmot found that men in the lowest employment grades were much more likely to die prematurely than men in the higher grades, which is what you were saying, except they were eating Snickers or candy.
Well, but they were from Harvard and had a more successful life, so you have to be careful about how you come to a conclusion. I think the reason that is true, what Janet's talking about, is because we were blessed one time. We spent a couple of days in St. Petersburg, Russia, and although it's an incredibly beautiful city with some art and, just the food was phenomenal and the buildings were like awe-inspiring. You just walk in and just be in awe. But we noticed the people didn't smile, and they smoked very, very heavily. They didn't smile, and they were drinking on the streets. As compared to other countries, Russia, at least St. Petersburg, had a much higher incidence of that. And that, the hardcore changing how your outlook is with smoking and drinking will lead to a premature death and a lot of discomfort and stress on the way.
Well, I think what they kind of gathered from this, the reason that was happening with the not as educated people, was because they felt like they had no control. They were not getting any predictive information of how bad the challenge is going to be, how long will it go on, so they saw that it was never going to end. They felt like there was no way out. So they interpreted things were getting worse, and you have no shoulder to cry on, like a lack of a social affiliation or support. So people at the top of the social pyramid feel a greater sense of control because they are the ones who call the shots, as well as typically having more social connections.
I think that's why you need a church.
Yes, and I was going to say that, Joyce Meyer helps us with this so much every morning. And because we run, I try to run a tight ship here. Dr. Lewis is definitely the brains behind the operation, but I'm doing all of the little bitty things that keep it together, like people getting their...
She's more stressed than me.
People getting their packages on time, and
a tremendous amount of work goes into that before we even talk to you.
Right, we take pride in that. We're always trying to get the things to you as fast as we can. Well, I haven't taken so much pride in it that in the middle of the night I'm shipping things to people, and in my mind going, oh gosh, did I do that? Did I do that? Did I do that? Well, listening to Joyce Meyer has helped me shut that off, because I now wake up and go, you know what? God already has this day planned out. My job is to show up and smile and let him handle it. And the first thing I do is go sit and look out the window or go outside and watch the birds sing and realize that it is that simple.
It's funny, I'm watching the squirrels.
Okay, well, they're still laid back. They're not stressed. And it helps me to remember it's not about me. There's already a bigger plan than what I have. And my job is to just show up and be full of joy and help people the best we can, which is why we're doing the show.
Janet's very uplifting. And, we've noticed that it really helps when we try to uplift others to make us feel better, like the lady that sent me the beautiful picture and email about her getting pregnant. And the other day we were in line at a cafeteria, and there was this good-looking young lady with a baby, and I thought, man, I need to buy her lunch. And Janet says, dadgummit, I had that feeling, but I didn't act on it, and I gave her some money. And it's kind of tricky to pulling that off, but you could tell it just blew the young lady's mind. And, even though she didn't look like she needed the help, you never know what somebody's going through. So, help other people, get that social network. If you don't have it with your family, there's certainly plenty of places. There's some really good churches that are coming back into vogue to help each other and be very, very, very non-judgmental, and that's very important. If you can find some kind of social network that gives you hope, I think that would help tremendously.
And then if that's not enough to look at the birds, you can also look at your body and say, look at what stress is doing to me, like weight gain, which nobody wants.
But you have to be patient,
right.
And some of us are not very patient. That takes time to change the body's physiology.
Stress-induced weight gain typically involves an increase in your belly fat, which is the most dangerous fat for your body to accumulate.
As I suck in my tummy?
Yeah, that's like around your midsection and rear end, and increases your cardiovascular risk. Stress alters the way fat's deposited because of the specific hormones and other chemicals your body produces when you're stressed.
Yeah, notice people that are very inflexible. They have a tendency to have higher blood pressure, the type A personality. No, I got to get it done.
I literally used
chill
to
out.
Before before I found these wonderful supplements that I take daily now, because I just have a more type A personality. It's got to get done, and it's got to get done now. There are actually products that you can take to help calm your mind and help chill you out some.
But you still get the job done.
Right.
Without the stress. That's the key.
Right. It doesn't drug you. It just helps you flow instead of trying to stop the flow, I guess is a better way. You actually think you're controlling something. The big one that we use is called 5-HTP because it's 100 milligram and it's 5-hydroxytryptophan, and what it does is it's the peace of God in a bottle, and it makes your mind happy. You cannot take it if you're on an antidepressant, so don't order it if you're on an antidepressant, but if you're not, that stuff is gold.
And people say, I've tried it before, it didn't work, and then I say, well, just try this, and they say, oh my God, this actually works. So just because it said that on the bottle doesn't necessarily mean that's what you're getting. And Janet and I just did a podcast with a baby boomer,
Planet Boomers.
Planet Boomerville. And we talked about that. So it's very important. He was very curious about how to tell a good supplement from a bad supplement. So check out Baby Boomerville, Planet Boomerville, Planet Boomerville, Jim Enright.
We're going to help. No, our next show is going to be about mind and memory.
It's mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter.
Oh, yeah, but there are things that'll help you cope, because before I started doing 5-HTP, I could literally feel my tongue burning when I'd get stressed, which is a gut problem, believe it or not.
That's the key. Pay attention. The answer's gut.
And then the next thing is, you don't go to the bathroom like you're supposed to. Your trains aren't going through the tunnel like you're supposed to, because on many people, when they get stressed, it's like their gut stops. They just don't function, which leads to another whole host of problems like lupus and Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis.
And some of these people that say, well, I have a gluten intolerance, and it's like, yeah, many of you really do, to different degrees. Some of them are to a terrible degree. But once you start taking 5-HTP or some other things, there are other products that help your body make its own different neurotransmitters. But once these people that have IBS and Crohn's and celiac, they say, well, oh my God, this is better. But you gave me stuff for my mind. Yes, but it starts in the GI tract. That's where those neurotransmitters start to go to the mind. And just a lack of B6, which is what makes these things cross the blood-brain barrier, just lack of B6 also contributes to leaky gut. Folks, you want to know what's going on? Look at leaky gut. And when you get these stressed reactions, you can lock up and not go to the bathroom, having bowel movements, or it can trigger diarrhea, because you have so many different types of reactions, and it can be both. You have the sympathetic nervous system, you have the parasympathetic nervous system. If you look at the physiology, some nerves speed up some of the actions in the body, other nerves slow it down so that it can create homeostasis, and it's very important to have these nerves balanced, and that's why I promote you going to your chiropractor. Of course, I am a chiropractor, although I had to retire from that because of the crazy insurance, lack of reimbursements. But when you get these stress reactions, that decreases nutrient absorption in your gut. And did you know your food is up to 76% less nutrient dense than it was in 1975? And it wasn't good in 1975, but it's up to 76% less. And one of the things that people have to realize is when we fertilize our crops with the nitrogen, that alone creates your plants. It stops it from absorbing calcium, potassium, and magnesium, even if it was in the soil. And then it changes the carbohydrate versus protein ratio, and it creates more protein in the plant. You would think, oh, more protein's good. No, not really, because it's poor quality protein, and it's a storage protein, which is, for the most part, gluten. And that's why in our wheat there's 4 to 40 times more gluten in the wheat. And there's actually research that says wheat can cause schizophrenia. And well, it can cause all kinds of mental aberrations, i.e., stress. So, I eat a little bit of wheat, but if I do very much for more than one time a day, it messes up my GI tract. It gets tender. Then I start getting a little bit of stress, anxiety, and depression. And I felt that last Sunday. I felt like I was outside of my body. And I thought, what have I done? Probiotics. Now, different ones help your body create different neurotransmitters. So we've got one that is like, oh my goodness, huge, 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 huge.
Yes, it's a 350 billion.
And they really make it at much, much higher than that. That's just so they can guarantee 350 billion. And Janet noticed I didn't feel good and I was spacey on Sunday, and I was totally different. My pain had gone away in my joints. My gut pain was gone. And mentally, I felt really, really good on Monday just from taking the probiotics.
And we tried it on our grandchildren just last night. We've got one that's 4 and one that's 7. And the 4-year-old has had a broke leg, so she's not been very happy and not going to the bathroom good. And, I noticed that because she likes to sit and talk to me while I sit in there with her and wait for her to go. But she would tell me she was trying so hard to go to the bathroom, and it just wasn't happening. And I immediately thought, probiotics. And so she's been acting out a little bit at daycare because of her pain, and her gut isn't right, like Dr. Lewis is talking about. So she's stressed. So last night, Dr. Lewis gave her, he opened one of it was a 50 billion, not even this 350 billion, because that's too strong for her. But he opened one and gave her a little bit of it in a little bit of yogurt, because you have to sneak it in on kids.
And most yogurt's not good for you, but you got to get it in somehow.
And we gave it to both of the grandkids, and they both ate their yogurt. And they, one of them said, "What flavor is this?" And we're saying it's good. It's good flavor. Those two slept like a baby last night. It was so fun to watch.
I thought incredible.
They looked so relaxed. They got up this morning. They were in a good mood. And I had to wake them up still. They had literally been asleep like 9 hours and still. And they were ready to go this morning. They had complete different attitudes. And, so many times you see kids like that are stressed, and the next thing they want to do to them is put them on things like Ritalin and, the ADHD medications that, just make them crazy.
When I was a kid, speed was not a good thing, except we might sneak in and get our mother's diet pills. But, yes, folks, that happens, so be careful with your medications. But now it's just normal to put them on speed, which is Ritalin. Read about it. And know that you can take the stress out of your young children and teenagers with ways that don't have the potential side effects.
And it's better than paregoric, which I think is something they used to give us when we were little. But
they'll shut you up. Here, take this.
That the probiotic that Dr. Lewis is speaking about for the adults, that's the 350 billion. When you go on our website to prohealthiq.com, you'll not be able to see that. And the reason that is because you'll need to log in and create an account, because this particular company does not allow their products to be sold online, because they are that particular with them because of the strength. They want to make sure that someone has spoke to them about what they're getting and that you have been directed by a doctor to order that. So if you're going to our website, make sure you create an account, and then you want to put in Probiomax, and it's PROBIOMAX 350. There's 15 packs in there, so they are heavy duty, and they will make a huge difference in how you feel.
Or if you've been in the hospital and you've taken the antibiotics, which can be a very life-saving thing, you have to re-inoculate your GI tract, because my daughter's in the hospital right now for double pneumonia, because she's, stressed single mom, doesn't get as much help from other people as she should, so she's stressed, and she got down and got sick. Now, and they're doing a great job at the hospital. God bless them. They're probably saving her life, but she's going to have to majorly re-inoculate her GI tract with their probiotics when she gets out, which hopefully will be today.
Right. So if you're experiencing stress, things that you may not even know are related to stress, like lupus, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, chronic skin conditions,
just gastric reflux,
kidney problems,
burping, belching, flatulence that your spouse doesn't like,
chronic fatigue syndrome or fibromyalgia, food-related adverse responses like food allergies, actually GERD, then you need to consider doing something like 5-HTP for stress and the ProBio Max 350, because it would really help make a lot of those problems better that you probably thought all you needed was a medication from your doctor to fix. That doesn't quite do that. Anyway, we hope that we have given you some knowledge today about stress. And again, I think the best thing you can do is try to find peace somewhere and get off the wheel. Go help somebody else, because I have noticed too in our own lives, when we go and do something for someone else and quit focusing on what we perceive we don't have or have to do, our life becomes so much better because we've directed it in another direction than worrying about ourselves.
And I may not like the politics of this one particular company that sells coffee, but sometimes you have to be flexible and you have to bless them too. So when we go by and get coffee, make sure you're buying the coffee for the people behind you. That'll make you feel better.
So thank you for listening to our show, and we hope you're not overwhelmed by stress. And thank you for sharing it with others who may be. You guys have a blessed week.